when we think about the history of math, it's easy to picture, ancient Greece or Mesopotamia,
Right.
Pythagoras, Euclid, those names, right?
Yeah, and the pyramids of Egypt too. I mean, you can't talk about ancient math without thinking about those incredible structures.
Right.
Let's talk about a deep understanding of geometry.
Absolutely. But what we're going to dive into today, well, it's a side of math history we don't hear about as often. We're going to uncover the fascinating world of mathematical thinking in sub-Saharan Africa.
Okay.
You'll see, it's about so much more than just landmarks. We're talking about math woven into the very fabric of everyday life.
I like it. And it's a history that stretches back further than a lot of people probably realize. Take the border cave bone, for instance.
Border cave bone?
Yeah, this 35,000-year-old baboon bone discovered in southern Africa.
35,000 years old. Wow, okay.
I'm intrigued.
It has 29 notches carved into it.
Okay, so we're talking about a 35,000-year-old baboon bone with notches. What's the significance? Well, archaeologists believe these notches were more than just random markings. They were likely carefully carved to represent a lunar calendar, tracking the cycles of the moon.
A lunar calendar from that long ago.
It's really quite incredible. And what's even more fascinating is the connection this bone has to present-day practices, even today.
You're saying this ancient calendar has a modern day equivalent.
Exactly. The same people of Namibia, they still use similar calendar sticks today.
Wow, that's amazing.
Maintaining those traditional ways of life, it really highlights how this mathematical knowledge, it wasn't just a one-time thing, It was a system that was passed down, refined, through countless generations.
That's incredible. A direct link to the past like that.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, isn't it?
It really makes you think about, how these systems of tracking time, they've endured.
Yeah.
But calendars are just one piece of the puzzle when it comes to math, right? What about the way numbers themselves are understood in sub-Saharan Africa?
Oh, now that is a fascinating area of study, let me tell you. Even just the way numbers are named and organized can reveal a lot about a culture's worldview.
Oh, I can see that. Like different words for numbers, different ways of grouping them.
Exactly.
So give me an example. How did different cultures actually view numbers differently?
Okay, well, consider the Ido people of Nigeria. They have this really unique perspective on the numbers 3 and 4.
3 and 4.
For them, 3 is associated with men and 4 with women.
Whoa, associating genders with specific numbers. I've never heard of that before.
Pretty interesting, right?
It can't just be random, right? There's got to be a reason behind it.
Oh, absolutely. And there is. It's directly tied to their creation myth.
Okay, how so?
So, in their stories, 3 represents the original male ancestor and 4 the first female ancestor.
Ah, I see, I see. So it's like these numbers are imbued with this deeper cultural significance.
Exactly. It reveals how intertwined their understanding of numbers is with their broader cultural beliefs.
So it's not just about the quantity, it's about the meaning woven into the numbers themselves. Fascinating.
And get this isn't limited to just like abstract beliefs.
Oh, really?
This pops up in practical applications too.
Like what?
For example, the Imakwa basket makers of Mozambique.
Okay, basket makers.
They refer to odd numbers as ugly numbers.
Ugly numbers. Ouch, that seems a bit harsh. What did the number 7 ever do to them?
Well, it's not about aesthetics, actually. It's all about functionality. You see, the Imakwa, they found that when they used an odd number of plant strips in their weaving,
Oh, plant strips. Yeah.
the patterns would come out uneven,
Ah, I see.
which obviously, affected the basket's durability in the end.
So ugly in the sense that it just messed with their craft. It wasn't like odd numbers were bad or anything.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. It speaks to how mathematics, for them, wasn't some separate academic pursuit. It was connected to their daily lives, their livelihoods.
It was about observation, experimentation, and passing that knowledge down through generations.
Absolutely. And it makes me think of another area where we see this kind of practical math in action games.
Games, yeah.
I am a sucker for a good board game.
Right.
And I'm betting there are some fascinating examples from Africa that most people, myself included, probably haven't even heard of.
Oh, there are. There are. Games like Aw 616 from the Ivory Coast,
Ah, 616.
or Amweso in Uganda. These games are incredibly rich, complex.
Okay.
The strategies are every bit as intricate as, like, a chess match.
Wow. I've honestly never even heard of those games before, but I love that embedded within them are these like really sophisticated mathematical concepts,
Oh,
right?
yeah. And what's so cool is that the players, they might not even realize they're engaging in, complex mathematical thinking.
It's just second nature to them.
Exactly. The very rules and strategies often demonstrate an intuitive understanding of things like probability, game theory, all that.
It's like they're doing the math without even realizing it, right? They're so caught up in the game trying to outsmart their opponent that it just becomes second nature.
It's amazing, isn't it? It makes you wonder how much of that kind of intuitive mathematical knowledge exists in other cultures around the world,
Yeah. Yeah.
tucked away in traditions and practices that we maybe haven't even thought to look at through that mathematical lens.
It's like a whole hidden world of math just waiting to be discovered. And you know what? You mentioned earlier those intricate patterns.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It makes me think of like textiles, carvings, even the layout of some buildings.
Oh, absolutely.
The artistry in those patterns is incredible. And obviously, geometry plays a huge role, right?
Absolutely does.
And I'm curious, is there more to it than just aesthetics? Like, is there a deeper mathematical significance there?
Well, you're asking all the right questions. You really are.
Yeah.
Let's take a closer look at those Sapatsi handbags from Mozambique, for example. Have you ever seen those?
I don't think so. What are they like?
The patterns on these bags are, I mean, they're mesmerizing. And what's truly remarkable is that the weavers, using techniques passed down for generations, mind you,
Wow.
they managed to figure out all 7 possible strip patterns.
Wait, all 7. You're saying there's only a certain number of ways to create a repeating pattern on a strip, and they discovered them all without like any formal mathematical training.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
That is incredible. It speaks to a really deep understanding of geometric principles, even if they didn't necessarily write it all down in a textbook, you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was knowledge embedded in the craft itself.
It's like they were unlocking geometric secrets through their craft. And, it makes me think about that other example you mentioned about the layout of buildings.
Right, right.
Is there a connection there? Could the design of villages and homes be influenced by this deep-rooted understanding of geometry?
You're definitely on the right track there. And to really understand that connection, well, we need to look at one of the most visually stunning examples of African mathematics I know of.
Okay, you left me hanging there at the end of that last part, talking about a visually stunning example of African mathematics. What is it?
Sona.
Sona. Doesn't ring a bell.
Okay, so picture this. Someone kneeling on the ground, and they're using their fingers to draw these intricate patterns in the sand.
Okay.
These patterns are called sona. They're found in different cultures across southern Africa.
So we're talking about sand drawings. It's like ancient sand graffiti, but with a deeper meaning.
You could say that. Sona can illustrate proverbs, they can tell stories, even encode knowledge about the natural world.
Okay.
But here's where it gets really incredible from a mathematical perspective. Researchers have discovered that these aren't just random doodles in the sand.
Really?
Yeah, they're based on sophisticated geometric principles.
Wait, hold on. You're telling me there are hidden mathematical formulas in these sand drawings? How did anyone even figure that out?
Well, it took a team effort. Anthropologists working with mathematicians, they were able to analyze the patterns in Sora. And what they discovered was they utilize algorithms, symmetry, even what we might call geometric proofs.
Wow, that's mind-blowing. So they're essentially doing like complex geometry in the sand, and these designs, they've been passed down for generations. What kind of things did they actually encode in these patterns?
Well, for one, they had this method for enlarging any Sona design,
Okay.
and they would do it accurately using a grid system. And get this was centuries before the invention of graph paper.
Wow, that's incredible.
It just shows how these seemingly simple drawings, they actually represent a deep, deep understanding of spatial reasoning and geometric principles.
It's like they created this giant open-air math lesson right there in the sand. It really makes you wonder what other hidden mathematical marvels are out there, just tucked away in traditions and practices we don't even think twice about.
Absolutely. It highlights how mathematics isn't limited to, textbooks and classrooms. It's a universal language, and it's expressed in countless ways.
Okay, so we've definitely busted some myths today about African mathematics, that's for sure. But where does this all fit in with the bigger picture of mathematical history? Was this knowledge completely isolated, or were there connections to other parts of the world?
That's a question scholars are still trying to fully unravel, to be
Oh,
honest.
that's bad.
We know African mathematics wasn't developed in complete isolation. There was definitely influence from ancient Egypt.
Right.
And then the spread of knowledge through Islamic scholars who traveled south of the Sahara, that played a role too.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And we can't forget about the slave trade
Yeah.
and the impact that had, the tragic loss of cultural knowledge, and that includes mathematical knowledge.
It's hard to even imagine how much was lost during that time.
It really is.
But it also makes every new discovery, every single artifact, all the more important. Each piece helps us put together this massive puzzle.
Exactly. It's an ongoing journey of discovery.
It really is. So, as we wrap up our deep dive here into the world of African mathematics, what's the key takeaway you hope listeners will take away from this?
I think the most important thing to remember is that math is everywhere, truly.
It's true.
It just takes many forms. We find it in the patterns of nature, in games, in the rhythms of music, even in the sand beneath our feet, like we've been talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
When we open our minds to these different ways of thinking, we start to gain a deeper appreciation for just how beautiful and diverse mathematics really is.
It's a good reminder that knowledge and innovation, it can come from anywhere.
We really can.
So, to everyone listening, the next time you encounter a pattern, a game, a piece of art, even just a pile of sand, take a closer look. You never know what mathematical secrets might be hiding right there in plain sight.